This is Kiara Jade, and why do I feel guilty when I go to say no or when I try to assert my boundaries? To answer this question, we need to start by going back to our childhood. So when you're a child, we get taught certain things. We're learning about the world. We're little sponges. We're taking things on board. And I guess we also get taught what actions we can take that get rewarded with love or affection by our caregivers. So essentially, we get taught that by looking after others and doing good things for other people and being that quiet child who does the dishes and does as they're told, we often get this rewarded with love and affection from our caregivers. And in our minds, in our little subconscious minds, we decide that the way to get love and affection from people and connection with people is to be this kind, compassionate person who looks after everyone else first and puts their own needs last. And this just continually gets reiterated by our parents or our caregivers when they reward us, when they say, "Good girl, you did such a good job looking after your little brother today." And it kind of gets ingrained into our psyche. We learn that receiving love is being that good girl persona and doing those things that our parents wanted us to do. As we grow older, this becomes our self-concept and our self-identity. We just take it on board. It becomes something that we continue on throughout our life, this pattern. Even though we were children when we learned it, it still continues. So this essentially becomes programmed into us, where society tells us that to be a functioning person out in society, to say get a partner or have a loving relationship or connection with someone, we have to be that good girl, we have to look after everyone, and we have to put our own needs last. And this is what becomes rewarded. And we want to be that person. We want to go out there and help everyone and look after everyone and make sure everyone's cared for, because it's our identity now, because that's what we've learned. And this is where we want to be the selfless mother 100% of the time, or we want to look after each other 100% of the time. And this isn't really sustainable, because we can't be that person 100% of the time. There has to be a time where we look after ourselves. And in this way, this is where the guilt comes in. So when we can't be that person that we think we should be, that we've been told that we have to be in order to receive love, we feel guilty. We feel like we should be doing more. We feel not good enough because, oh, I feel bad. My friends asked me to go hang out and I just don't have the time this week. But what if she needs me? What if this? What if that? And our what ifs come up, and that feeling of guilt gets triggered within us, and we just end up saying yes, because even though we might not want to go see our friend this week, we might want to see them next week. This is something that has been ingrained in us from childhood, and we don't even know it's happening. It's all subconscious process. And we're just trying to do the best we can, and we think that that's going and doing everything for everyone else and not necessarily putting our needs first. This is what we think we should be, and this is what we think is expected of us, because that's what's been ingrained in us. This is what leads to burnout. So a lot of the time when people are doing all things for all people and giving and giving and giving and running around at the expense of themselves to look after others, we can't do this 100% of the time. We do get to a point where we get so exhausted. We get sick is often what happens. It's not until something like that, where we get a cold or something, where we actually have to stop. And that's our body's way of telling us you needed to stop a while ago, but you didn't. So now this is happening, which is going to stop us. This is where the guilt comes in, when we can't perform like how we want to or how we've been told we should. We feel bad about it, and we feel like we're not doing enough. We haven't been trained in looking after ourselves and putting ourselves first. We've been trained in probably the opposite, and we feel unworthy and unlovable when we're not giving all things to all people and putting ourselves last in the process. So you've attached your worthiness to this, which means that it's affecting your self-esteem, and it's also affecting pretty much your connection with others. But I want to remind you that you are worthy, whole, and complete without other people's validation. You don't need making someone else happy to make you feel happy. We're adults now, and I think that's the big differentiation here, and we can give that to ourselves. It's a journey, but it's 100% worth it, and it'll free you from so many of the demands of day-to-day life, because it is something that is just next level in our evolution. You're worthy, whole, and complete as you are. Your inner child is probably going to remind you, hey, we didn't do that thing. We didn't clean the house. We didn't look after everyone. And they're going to make you feel fear around that something bad is going to happen if you don't perform those things or if you don't look after the people around you. But I want to remind you that that's from a child's perspective. So when this person was a child, they had to look after their caregivers. They had to be that good girl. Otherwise, they might have been rejected. And we are a species who validate our tribes, and we need our tribe around us. And as children, that could have been quite a high risk. But now we're adults. We don't need people who love us conditionally anymore. We can make that choice to maybe not clean the house today because I'm feeling absolutely exhausted. And even if people don't like that, we can give ourselves that unconditional love. We can say, I love myself. I'm okay with the fact that I needed some rest today, and I'm going to give that to myself. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if I feel guilty about it. That's what it's all about. It's sitting with the guilt when it comes up, when we feel like we should be doing something or we need to be doing something, and actively deciding, is this something I actually want to do, or is this something that my role, that my good girl, my inner child is telling me I need to do in order to feel love? And often that guilt is what tells you that it's actually not you who wants to do this. So if you're thinking about saying no and going, oh, I'm just so tired, I don't really want to, and then that guilt comes up, that's you telling you, your subconscious mind is having that battle between, no, you should do it, and, but I don't want to. And that saying no is bringing up this guilt. So that's you saying you don't actually want to do this. So I would encourage you to sit with the guilt. Say no, don't do it anyway, and sit with that guilt and make friends with it. So if we can sit in that uncomfortable emotion, we're going to learn how to manage it, and we're going to learn that we're okay afterwards. So I know with me personally, I had a friend messaging me, oh, come over. And I was just not in the right headspace that week. I was exhausted emotionally, and I just didn't have the capacity for it. And I really wanted to go, but there was a part of me that was like, no, this is too much, and this is going to like be the straw that breaks the camel's back this week. And so I sent them a text message, sorry, I'm not able to make it. I know we made this plan. I know I've had this plan in place for 2 weeks, but I just am really tired today. And the fear around waiting for that return text message to come back of like, what are they going to say to me because I've said no? Are they going to be really mad? Are they going to react aggressively? Am I going to need to diffuse the situation? I should never have said that in the first place. Why have I done this? And there was just so much worst case scenario coming up in me. And they replied back and they were like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. Look after yourself. All good. We'll make it another day. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that in my mind, I'd made it out to be this whole huge thing, that they were going to be really angry at me and that I was going to be not loved, essentially. But in reality, it was a completely different situation. They completely respected me, and they kind of gave me that unconditional love, I suppose, of saying, that's fine, I respect that, and whenever you can is okay. And that's when I realized, hey, I think there's a bit more to this good girl inner child stuff than what I originally thought. That kind of thing is where we need to be mindful of ourselves. So I want to remind you, when you are feeling the guilt, remember that looking after your own needs is a good thing. Even though it might feel scary, even though it might feel uncomfortable, once we learn to look after ourselves and what we really need and give ourselves that self-care when we are struggling, we're not going to burn out as much. We're not going to get exhausted as much. We're going to be able to give more of ourselves to people because we're maintaining that energy sustainably. We're not just crashing every 2 weeks when we've done everything and can't do any more, and then needing to kind of recoup and recover and then come back again. So by not burning out, we're actually giving more of ourselves. We're also not as resentful. We're not as annoyed. So if I'd said yes to that friend and gone out for coffee with them, and I was tired and I was exhausted, I probably would have just been like, okay, come on, let's hurry this up. And I would have been a little bit like, to have that undercurrent of frustration, and maybe ended it really early or something because I just didn't want to be there. And that's going to affect my connection with my friend. Whereas saying no and rescheduling for a later date when I feel better is going to strengthen that bond. So there is pros to being able to do this. We don't have that underlying resentment. And even though your inner child's going to think this is really scary, we're not children anymore. We can gift this love and acceptance to ourselves now. We can say when we are feeling uncomfortable and feeling guilty, it's okay to do this. You're not hurting anyone. You're just looking after yourself, and that's okay. We can give ourselves that love and reassurance that maybe we didn't get when we were younger, when we were pressured into doing things. Because we're adults now and we can reparent ourselves if we need to. At the end of the day, this is what we want. We want to be able to care about people and choose when we care about people. So for me personally now, when someone asks me to do something, I reflect. I sit and I go, okay, do I want to do this? Is this something that I want to do? And if I am in a good headspace, if I am in a place where I can be compassionate and give to other people, I will. And I will actively choose to do it of my own volition. I won't feel pressured and I won't feel forced by the fact that I want to please this person and I want to look after this other person and I feel like I should, otherwise I'll be a bad person. And it just completely changes the energy of the situation. You just feel so much lighter when you're like, I chose to do this, and then I also can choose not to do this if it's too much for me in this moment. That's why we feel guilt around saying no, is because we've been taught and ingrained to us that we need to be this certain person in order to feel love. We need to be this person, this robot person who does everything for everyone, has a perfectly clean house and never has downtime, which is just not really realistic at all. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I would love some feedback. Ask any questions you've got. If you've got any shout outs for something you'd like me to chat about, more than happy to take that up. Yeah, have a fantastic week, ladies. Love to you all. Bye.